and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, Senator Chuck Graham, 19th Senatorial District, Boone and Randolph counties. I'd like to thank the chairman for the hearing, and also Representative Ferris for being in Columbia and getting an award from the graduate school at the University of Missouri this week. Those were both well deserved, and very happy to have you in the district last week. This is the bill that would give a student curator a vote on the MU Board of Curators. It's been around in various incarnations for the 12 years that I've served in the legislature. When I served in this body and used to sit here listening to the budget in this room for hours upon hours, as I'm sure many of you do. We modified it a little bit because we see an opportunity that may arise in 2012. It's widely anticipated that the state of Missouri is going to lose a congressional seat, which will drop us from 9 congressional seats down to 8. In the state law, you can have no more than 1 curator per congressional district. And the Constitution requires that there be 9 curators on the University of Missouri Board of Curators. It's been 9 for decades. It just kind of corresponds by happenstance right now with the number of congressional districts. When we had 12 congressional districts, we had 9 curators. And so those two numbers aren't necessarily tied, but there is a state law that says you can't have more than 1 per congressional district. And so what we would do in this bill is, if we do lose a congressional district at the 2010 census, in 2012, what we would do is allow the student curator the right to vote on the Board of Curators as a full voting curator. This is not uncommon. This is not man's first step on the moon. 25% of public colleges and universities have a voting student curator. My alma mater, the University of Illinois, has had one for many years. UCLA has it, Penn State has it, all the Wisconsin schools have it. If you go throughout the country, and I can provide you a list of all the major public colleges and universities that have student voting curators, it's quite expansive. So this may feel like new territory to some people in the state of Missouri, but it's really not new territory. Mr. Chairman, over the last 2 years, we've had a trend that's actually been very disturbing for higher education, and those folks who represent the higher education institutions will recognize this. At least at the University of Missouri, it's the first time in the history of the university and the state where tuition now makes up a greater percentage of the university's budget than state support. We are the second state where we have crossed that line, and that continues to go up. You'll notice that the Board of Curators just voted for the maximum tuition increase they can since we passed $389 last year. And I think that it's time, especially with the great debt load that these students are taking on, that they have a vote. We trust them to vote for us. We trust them to vote for the President of the United States. We trust them to fight and die in Iraq and Afghanistan. Yet for some reason, we have said, well, we don't trust you to have a vote on the Board of Curators. I remember when I first got here, they weren't even allowed in closed sessions. They've been, because they might go tell the media. Well, I can tell you that of all the curators that have leaked things from closed sessions to the media, since we let them into a closed session, not once has it been the student curator. I think that they take these jobs very seriously. They go through a tremendous vetting process. The rest of the curators, and no disrespect to anyone in particular, or from any party. If you take a look at who generally gets on the Board of Curators, and this is historic, under Democrat governors and Republican governors, it tends to be somebody who was a big supporter of the governor, and other than that, all they've got to do is get Senate confirmation and their Senate sponsor. The student curator goes through a significant vetting process. And so we have never had a problem with any of the student curators. They've all been people of excellent caliber, including Tony Lukenmeyer, who interned in the White House, worked for the current president. He's done a great job on the Board of Curators. And I think that it's time that we allow them the dignity of having a vote. I mean, really, tuition increases that keep getting voted on, and they tried to sneak some fee increases through this year that Tony brought to their attention that said you can't do that without a vote of the students. mean, really what we have is tuition as a form of taxation without representation by the people that are going to pay these bills over decades and decades and decades. It's different than when I went to college back in the 80s. Hardly any of us left with student debt, and some of us maybe had some small student loans. When I was on the interim committee for improving the public defender system this last year, we had one person who had a master's and a law degree who was working as a public defender that had $160,000 of student debt, making under $40,000 trying to be a public defender with a wife and kids. He had to leave the system because he couldn't even take care of his student debt, much less live in Kansas City and try to defend people as a state employee in the public defender's office. So I think it's a time, I think the time is right. I think the opportunity is there. If we don't do this and we lose a congressional seat, I can promise you, you are going to see an absolute food fight among the remaining 8 congressional districts over who gets to have 2 curators. You're going to see that, and it's going to be just a mess. And so we're able to preempt that, and I've got a lot of faith in them, and I hope that you have some faith in them too. And we passed this out of the Senate where it never has passed before. We passed it 30-2. It's passed the House before, never the Senate. We used to just have all these old crusty senators who said, I don't trust those kids to make a vote on that. We have some protections in the bill. Senator Wilson wanted a protection in there to make sure that they're not voting on personnel matters that involve faculty that may be teaching them. So they can be involved in the hiring of the president, but outside of that, they are not involved in personnel matters. I think that's certainly an appropriate safeguard, one that we wanted to include for her. And I'd be more than happy, Mr. Chairman, to answer any questions. We have several witnesses, and I'm just pleased that you all were here this evening to hear what I think is a real opportunity for the students of this state to have a real say on the Board of Curators, not to be treated differently, because they are treated differently by the rest of the curators, because they don't vote on important issues.
Any questions of the sponsor? Seeing none, I know you do have witnesses.
Okay, and
You're first.
Before they do, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I address one thing. I also understand that some of y'all may have been getting some calls from some of the curators. The Board of Curators in the past has opposed the bill. They have not taken a position on this bill, an official position, so anything that they're doing on their own. They have not taken an official position. They've decided officially so far to be neutral, and I do believe that the university president said he has no opposition to this bill. So if you need to check some of those conversations with me about what they're telling you and what's really going on, I'd be more than happy to give you my cell number and talk to you anytime you'd like.
Thank you. Representative Costin.
I do have a question.
Thank you.
How long would a student serve on the board?
They would be on for a 2-year term. What they do is they rotate among campuses. So currently the University of Missouri, Columbia has one, and there's a rotational basis. Then I believe, I'm not sure if I have the rotation right, I think it then goes to UMKC, then to Raleigh, then to St. Louis and back. And so they would be on there for a period of 2 years. They're usually either a senior when they're selected that's going to graduate school, or as in the case with Tony Lukenmeyer, the current student curator, he's in law school. So we're not just picking, freshmen don't get these positions.
Thank you. Thank you.
How long do the actual curators?
6 years.
6 years. So the student would have a 2-year term as opposed to the 6-year for the curator.
Yes, and I know that some people have expressed some concern. I don't have a lot of concern, because you know what? The people that get selected for this, they do a lot of studying. And I would bet you pretty much everything in my checking account that they would probably be more likely to go through everything in their board member packet than the rest of the curators before they show up.
Any further questions of the sponsor? Seeing none, okay, witness.